This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. All right, sometimes I like to switch it up with hot takes and ask you guys outright what your hot takes are. And given that this is the end of mini camp and kind of the start of that break before training camp, I thought it'd be a good idea to go directly to the people and ask you guys what you think your hot takes were. I got a lot of responses on Twitter and on YouTube, so let's go through them. Brutus says this, that not having a QB decided by now is actually fine. We should only be concerned when it's mid-August and nobody has pulled away. People can look great in shorts, but shit the bed when it comes to pads out. Yeah, I agree with this sentiment. I don't think that's a hot take. I think that Todd Monken was being hopeful with saying that I would like to have a quarterback by June, but like we all knew the reality was this was likely to go until joint practice, right? That's the reasonable conclusion to this. Get a preseason game in, get some joint practice in, make your decision after that. If we remember last year, the Browns made their decision on who the starting quarterback was going to be after the joint practice with Philadelphia. It's probably going to be the same thing. And be honest, no matter who the coach is, if you're having a quarterback competition, that's probably when it's going to be decided, right? After the joint practice. So, yeah, I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's a normal take. If that's a hot take, then people have lost their mind, which might be also true. Matthew says this, Boston might have a better career than Casey Concepcion. I feel like we're reacting a bit much in terms of the negativity on Casey Concepcion versus like Boston. I think they're both going to be good players. But what Boston is good at is more likely to be highlighted during a OTAs or a mini camp. What Casey Concepcion is good at is stuff that like matters when they're in pads, right? His ability to make people miss, punt returns, live play is really what you need to see what Casey Concepcion can do. So it does make sense that Boston in this setting looks good, but let's give KC to be in a setting that highlights his strengths to be able to showcase what he could do before we start being negative about him, right? Like I think Boston looks great. We'll see KC in his element probably in the preseason, and I hope we feel great about KC as well. You know, it doesn't have to be a either or situation here. The next hot take comes from OB Alex, who says this. Matthew Stafford's back is suspect. Q, please stop preemptively saying the Rams pick will be a late first-round pick. His back is broken, spinal. I think that's a Mike Tyson reference. Well, I mean, Matt Stafford's back is fine right now, right? Like, he's healthy. They just signed him to a one-year extension. There's nothing indicating that his back is a problem for them. I know last year he went into that cryo tube or whatever he did, and he played almost MVP level football. Like, I feel like we're coping with this one. Like, the reason I'm preemptively saying that the Rams pick is likely to be a late pick is simply because it's true. That is likely to be a late pick. The Rams were 12-5 last year, and they added Myles Garrett. They're probably going to be a good team this year. I don't get why that's not a concept that's easy to grasp. You're saying I should not say that that's probably going to be a late first-round pick because there is a chance that shit can go wrong for the Rams. But that's true with every team. But what we know about the Rams is that Matthew Stafford is healthy. He's coming off an MVP level season, and they were 12-5 last year. And they just added Myles Garrett. Am I supposed to assume that team's not going to be a good team? That's not going to be a late pick? Like, I don't get that. You have to have an argument for assuming it's not. And there's no argument there for assuming it's not going to be a late pick. Every argument assumes that, every argument, it's safe to assume that will be a pretty strong pick or a pretty late pick for the Browns, which is fine, right? But they were 12-5 last year. That's why I'm assuming. That's why everybody's assuming it's going to be a late pick. I don't know why this is hard to grasp. And, like, it's not just Alex that said this. I've seen other people say this, and, like, maybe it's just, like, cope. But why would you assume that the Rams pick isn't a late pick? Like, they've been 10-7 the last 3 years or above. They were 12-5 last year. They added Myles Garrett, and Matt Stafford is old, but his back has been fine. Like, he's been playing at a high level. Like, there's nothing that indicates that his back would be a problem. And if you follow the money, the Rams clearly don't think that's the problem because they just signed him to an extension, a 1-year extension. So, nah, there's not enough there. I think we're hoping that something could happen to Matt Stafford's back. But also, like, the Rams did draft Ty Simpson. What if Ty Simpson's good? So, like, even if his back goes out, they're more prepared for that than they were the last couple of times that Matt Stafford got injured. And even one of those years where Matt Stafford got injured, I think they went to the playoffs, or maybe that was Jared Goff that got injured. But they're a good team, man. They got Puka Nacua. He's a 1,700-yard receiver. They have a solid offensive line. We'll see what happens with their left tackle. He's in a legal situation. But the Rams are probably going to be a good team. I think it's you can't make the argument that I can assume otherwise. I don't get that. Darkest Jedi says this. Monken is overly vague with his responses to the media. It's not going to hurt the team naming a starting quarterback now rather than later. It's Watson versus Shador. Let's be real here. I mean, like, I think every coach is a little vague in their press conferences. That's just how those work. And I think the reason he's not naming a starter is because there's just not a starter right now. I don't think he knows who's the starter is going to be, right? All that shit we heard from Mary Kay and all the stuff that we hear from, the Sanders camp of people of all the decisions been made. It's Deshaun Watson. It's Shador Sanders, right? Before OTAs, people were telling me that it's a done deal. Shador's the starter. And then OTA starts and Mary Kay's telling me that Deshaun's going to be the starter. And the answer is truly, they don't know who's the starting quarterback because they haven't decided yet. It's not that difficult. But we'll continue. But first, I got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a fun way to earn cash while you watch your favorite teams. No complex betting rules. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Here are my picks for this upcoming season, AFC North edition. Jimmy Bernard, I have less than 475. This has to do with volume available in Pittsburgh's offense. Quincy Judkins, I have over 975. Browns improved line. I think the run game's going to be better with it. Chase Brown, under 900 yards. Joe Burrow equals less rushing yards usually for the Bengals offense. Mark Andrews, more than 475 yards. Lamar's going to need a safety blanket. Check to see if PrizePicks is available in your state. You could follow me on the app at Quinn_C to see all my lineups. Download the PrizePicks app today. Play $5 and get $50 in lineup to download the app using the link in the description. Next hot take to react to is from Matthew. Says, with decent QB play, Denzel Boston will turn into the Browns version of Mike Evans. I don't want to do that to him. Let's not put Mike Evans on Denzel Boston. You know what I mean? Like, can we just let him develop before we start putting Mike Evans on him? Like Mike Evans, like, here's my thing. If there is a first ballot Hall of Famer in your comp and that player that you're comping to the first ballot Hall of Famer isn't like a generational prospect, it's just somebody you like, you got to slow down, right? Like, let's slow down for Mike Evans. Mike Evans is too much right now. If he plays well over the next couple of years, then we can start talking about a Mike Evans comp. But nobody starts at Mike Evans other than like Mike Evans, right? Like, let's not do that to Denzel Boston. I don't even think that's fair to him. I like him, though. He's been playing well in practice. I like what I see in tape. I think he's going to be a good player. But, like, let him get a couple of 1,000-yard seasons under his belt before we start mentioning names like Mike Evans, man. Like, we got to be respectful of Mike Evans. You know what I mean? You can't just disrespect him by just associating him with every tall wide receiver you see. You feel me? Like, Mike Evans also as a prospect. Like, I don't think people remember how good Mike Evans was, man. Like, Texas A&M bailing Johnny out all the time. We got to slow down. If we get to Mike Evans at some point in his career, we could talk about it. But right now, let's just get Denzel Boston to a good rookie season. To number 9 says, is that a Big Smoke reference? Yeah, that's a Big Smoke reference. All right. I feel like losing Miles, the Browns will still be a top 10 defense. I think the Browns will be a top 10 defense this year. So I agree with that part of this. I think, though, that they were a top 3 defense last year, and they're going to dip to a top 10 defense. So, yeah, they'll still be a top 10 defense. But I do think that we aren't properly assessing the difference between being number 1 or number 2 to being number 8 or number 9 means, right? Like that's a whole different conversation of defense. Still a really good defense, still a good and better than average defense, but a lot different than a top 2, top 3 defense, which I think they were. You know, I think if the Browns had a better offense, the Browns could have made an argument for being the best defense in the NFL last year. JG says this: Todd's a sacrificial lamb. All right, we getting spicy. No two ways about it. Got a feeling our secondary will be picked apart, and the offense won't be able to score enough a la Cincy last year. Whoever we hire in 2 years gets a juggernaut, though. So you're saying that Todd's going to be what Freddie Kitchens was for Kevin Stefanski. I don't think that's a crazy take. I really don't, because Todd's kind of here to be at the bottom. My hope is that Todd isn't that Todd's more of a Mark Jackson to somebody Steve Kerr, right? Like Todd has success, they win, but they get somebody who could take it to the next level if Todd can't, which we don't know if that's the case. But yeah, this is interesting. He's in a tough spot for sure. Like, I don't think people appreciate how tough of a spot Todd Monken is in, because like they still expect to win a decent amount of games this year. And when you had Miles and potentially a top 3 defense, I think that, you know, building the offense as you go was a more viable strategy to get to their, you know, they're probably aiming for at least 7 wins this year. I think that was a lot more reasonable. Now, like, it's possible you can still get to 7 wins, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot harder to do if you're swapping out Myles Garrett for Jared Verse, because it's just, you know, Jared Verse is a really good player. It's just Myles is Myles, right? And if you're thinking about that trade, like the only thing the Browns are getting this season for that trade is Jared Verse. So, yeah, they get the first round pick, the second round pick, and the third round pick, but who knows if Todd's going to be here for any of that. You know what I mean? But yeah, I do think that the Browns have basically gotten back the draft capital that they lost in the Deshaun Watson trade over these last 3 years. And I think that's going to build a pretty solid team. So I agree with you. I think in 2 years, especially if this team has a quarterback, they're going to be really good. You know what I mean? They still need somebody who can be the face of this team. Right now, this team does not have a face anymore, but if somebody can fill that role, and if it's a quarterback that does, then yeah, it's going to be pretty good. Big Wave Dave says this: the national perception of the team, of the defense, will need an overhaul by the end of the season. Everyone will question if it was wise to let Schwartz and Miles slip out the grip of the franchise. Now, I think Jim Schwartz being able to attach himself to Miles leaving is like crazy PR. Right? Like if the defense slips, I think it's more likely it's Miles not being here anymore than it's about Jim Schwartz, right? Jim Schwartz he basically just benefited off of having Myles Garrett on the roster. So I don't know if Jim Schwartz gets to be a part of that, but yeah, I think, you know, if the defense does fall further than top 10, there's going to have to be a conversation about if letting Miles walk, even though he wanted to go, would be worth it. Because, you know, if you're just dropping from 3 to 10, you're gonna feel it. It's not gonna be great, but it's manageable. If you drop from 3 to 16, and you got a bigger problem on your hands, right? So it'd certainly be something. Hey Nice says this: Shador should be the starter for the full year. See, he's got and commit. See what he's got and commit full time, or tank because he's bad and get a worst case scenario, a QB that he plays below average. You're sitting at pick 14. I think this is too simple, right? Like we do this a lot with quarterback decisions. And I talked about this last year where we're like, well, we should just go this way because if he's good, then we have an answer. And if he's bad, then we're going to be the best team. We're going to have the number one pick in the NFL. But when we say that, we're presenting it like it's 50-50 either way. Like there's a 50% chance that Shedeur plays well enough to take us to the promised land, and there's a 50% chance that the Browns stink because of Shedeur and get the number one overall pick. But that's not the reality. The reality is that both of those scenarios that people are suggesting have like a 10% chance of happening. And I think that's even higher than what it should be, like a 5% chance of happening in reality, right? There's like a 5% chance that Shedeur takes the job, becomes the franchise quarterback. There's like a 5% chance that Shedeur is so bad and the team is so bad that they get the number one overall pick, right? More than likely, we're sitting at like pick 8. Like that's what's most likely, no matter what we do at quarterback. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think whoever's named as the starting quarterback this year is going to really change what that draft order is going to be. I think that this team is probably going to play both of them, and I think the quarterback play is probably going to be underwhelming from both players for different reasons. We could debate which reasons we prefer, but we're debating a preference, right? I don't think we should start Shedeur just because like we could bottom out, because this team has a lot around the quarterback position, regardless of who's out there. You know, I think that's going to protect this team from the quarterback position bottoming out, no matter who it is. So in reality, it's not let's just put them out there and let's get one of these two scenarios. It's like either way, if you play Shedeur a bunch, if you don't play Shedeur, you're pretty likely going to be picking in the same spot. So I don't think that factors in for me. And also, like, here's the important part. Todd's got to play the quarterback that people believe can win games at the end of the day. He can't do what you're saying. He can't sit here and be like, I want Arch Manning, so we're just going to play Shedeur even though if he plays terrible, and I'm going to justify that to the locker room. He has to be able to make a decision at quarterback that the locker room can agree with, because as much as we talked about in the aftermath of this Myles Garrett trade about building a culture, right? You traded Myles Garrett partly to build a culture. Well, you can't build a culture if your team believes that you're not trying to win games. And if you're not starting a quarterback that the roster believes is in there because he's trying to win games, then all this culture shit that you're trying to build is going to go out the window. Like that's all going to smoke out the window because you just told them that winning's not important. So it's cooked. So you can't do that. You know what I mean? Like this stuff only really makes sense when we tweet it. But if anybody tried to apply some of this logic in like real life, it'll fall apart immediately. You know what I mean? So that's kind of why I don't really like when people throw out that suggestions like, oh, let's just play this guy, even though if he stinks, we could just keep. You can't just keep playing him if he stinks. You know what I mean? Even if you're me and you think that the team's not going to be in a much drastically different quarterback, in a drastically different draft position, regardless of who's playing. You still can't have the locker room think that you're not trying to win and build a culture at the same time. It's incompatible. That's really it for me. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night.